Good evening and welcome to the May 14th meeting of the Falmouth Conservation Commission. This meeting is being held virtually via Zoom video conference and is also being broadcast by FCTV on cable channel 9. As this meeting is being recorded by Zoom and broadcast by FCTV, please be cognizant of what you say, how you say it, and what can be seen and heard in your background. We're missing one commissioner tonight. We're expecting one coming in late. However, the appointed alternate tonight is our newest member. Welcome, Ronnie Bowman. I'd like to remind you guys that for commenting, I'll call on each of you in turn, so please refrain from speaking over each other. Also, all votes are done by roll call. So when I call your name, please state your name and your vote for the record, even if you've made the motion or the second. To our public attendees, at any time during this meeting, you may enter any comments or questions via the chat function. At the appropriate time, they will be read into the record. If, as an attendee, you'd like to participate in a particular hearing, let us know via the chat function. Then at the appropriate time, you'll be promoted into the hearing as a participant. When you are selected, you must have your video enabled. Be succinct and respectful of others. Public comments will be limited to 3 minutes each. Regarding RDAs, under a request for determination of applicability, the applicant is asking the Commission to determine if the provisions of the Massachusetts Wetlands Protection Act and/or the Falmouth Wetlands Bylaw apply to their proposed project. A negative determination is that the provisions of the Act and/or the bylaw do not apply. Therefore, the project may proceed as proposed. A positive determination means that the provisions of the Act and/or the bylaw do in fact apply and/or may require some conditions. Therefore, the project would require a notice of intent application. So as an applicant, you actually want to hear a negative determination. And for the benefit of anyone waiting for a particular hearing tonight, and so that you're not waiting unnecessarily, the following hearings are expected to be continued. 84 Old Dock Road, 0 Davisville Road, and 40 Mary Manuel Way. And hold on to start. Before we start tonight, I just want to welcome our newest commissioner, Ronnie Bowman. Thank you for participating, Ronnie. Look forward to having you serve and look forward to more people. Courtney, before your finger falls off.
Just a question of procedure. Because we have a missing commissioner, are you going to, is Ron moved up to be a full voting member tonight?
Well, you weren't paying attention because that was the third thing that I said.
Okay.
So yes, he's been promoted as the
I stand corrected.
Active, and we have a quorum anyway. So, and there'll be some items that he's not on the quorum yet, Ronnie, that is. Because he hasn't heard them before. So I'll point that out just for posterity. So if there's nothing else, we're going to move forward. First up tonight is to vote minutes of April 23rd, 2025. Anyone?
Mr. Chairman, I'd move approval of the minutes. Sorry for the delay.
Bird second.
All right. And again, Ronnie, this is the kind of thing that I'm going to skip over you because you weren't at those meetings, so it wouldn't be appropriate for you to vote on. All right, we have a motion and a second to accept the minutes of April 23rd. We're voting. Courtney.
Bird aye.
Matthews aye. Russ.
Robbins aye.
Steve.
Patton aye.
It is unanimous with this quorum. We have accepted the minutes of April 23rd. Next up is to vote minutes of April 30th, 2025.
Mr. Chairman, I move approval of the minutes. I've reviewed them. Patton.
Bird second.
All right, we have a motion and a second to accept the minutes of April 30th. Questions or comments or input? We're voting. Courtney.
Bird aye.
Matthews aye. Russ.
Robbins aye.
Steve.
Patton aye.
Again, it is unanimous with this quorum. We have accepted the minutes of April 30th. Thank you, Kristen. Next up are requests for a continuance under a notice of intent. And Ronnie, you can vote on these because this is only for to continue these hearings, where you can abstain if you're uncomfortable. First up, David Flaherty, Flaherty Environmental Services, 84 Old Dock Road, Falmouth, Mass, for after-the-fact permission for the installation of hardscape and for permission to install the associated mitigation. Jen?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, the applicant is requesting a continuance until June 25th.
Bird, so
So
moved.
moved, Robbins.
We have a motion and a second to continue to 6:25. Questions or comments? We're voting on the continuance. Courtney?
Bird, aye.
Matthews, aye. Ronnie?
Driscoll, aye.
Coleman, aye.
Uh-oh. Ron popped in on me. Russ?
Robbins,
but-
aye.
All right, sorry about that.
That's all right. Steve?
Patton, aye.
It is unanimous. We have continued this till 6:25. We'll get there. Next up, Wayne Van Wart, the Seashell Lane Community Association, Inc., 0 Davisville Road, map and parcel ID is 40-11-013-000, Falmouth, Mass, for permission to reconstruct and enlarge an existing licensed community dock system. Jen?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, the applicant is requesting a continuance until June 11th.
Bird, so moved.
Robbins, second.
Second.
All right, we have a motion and a second to continue this until June 11th. It's been continued many times. I think we're getting there. Never mind. All right, we have a motion and a second to continue this to 6:11. We're voting. Courtney?
Bird, aye.
Matthews, aye. Ron?
Driscoll, aye.
Ronnie?
Coleman, aye.
Russ?
Robbins, aye.
Steve?
Patton, aye.
It is unanimous. We have continued this until June 11. Next up, Joshua Cardoza, 40 Mary Manuel Way, Falmouth, Mass, for permission to construct a single-family dwelling with attached garage and Title V sewage disposal system. Jen?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, the applicant is requesting a continuance until June 25th.
Bird, so moved.
Patton, second.
All right, are we getting busy on 6:25?
No.
Okay. All right, we have a motion and a second to continue this hearing until 6:25. Questions or comments? We're voting on the continuance. Courtney?
Bird, aye.
Matthews, aye. Ron?
Driscoll, aye.
Ronnie?
Coleman, aye.
Russ?
Robbins, aye.
Steve?
Patton, aye.
It is unanimous. We have continued this to 6:25. Next up are requests for determination of applicability. First up, Matthew Philbrick, 17 Foster Road, Falmouth, Mass, for permission to reconstruct 2 decks. Alyssa?
Staff recommends a -3 under the state and a -2 under the bylaw. Resource area boundaries are not confirmed.
Bird, so moved.
Patton, second.
All right, we have a motion and a second to accept staff's recommendation. Questions or comments? We're voting. Courtney?
Bird, aye.
Matthews, aye. Ron?
Driscoll, aye.
Ronnie?
Coleman, aye.
Russ?
Robbins, aye.
Steve?
Patton, aye.
It is unanimous. We have accepted staff's recommendation. Next up, Alice Elizabeth Jones Crawford, trustee, 0 Associates Road, map and parcel ID 24-05-0009-022D as in David, Falmouth, Mass, for permission to conduct minor invasive species management and restoration. Alyssa?
Staff recommends a -3 under the state and a -2 under the bylaw. Resource area boundaries are not confirmed.
Bird, so moved.
Driscoll, second.
All right, we have a motion and a second to accept staff's recommendation. Questions or comments? We're voting. Courtney?
Bird, aye.
Matthews, aye. Ron?
Driscoll, aye.
Ronnie?
Coleman, aye.
Russ?
Robbins, aye.
Steve?
Patton, aye.
It is unanimous. We have accepted staff's recommendation. Next up, Larry Budnick, 331 Minot Road, Falmouth, Mass, for permission to install a pool, patio, and equipment pad. Alyssa.
Staff recommends a -2 under the state and bylaw. Resource area boundaries are not confirmed, and this project solely takes place in an AE flood zone.
Bird, so move.
Driscoll second.
All right, we have a motion and a second to accept staff's recommendation. Questions or comments? We're voting. Courtney.
Bird, aye.
Matthews, aye. Ron.
Driscoll, aye.
Ronnie.
Holman, aye.
Russ.
Robbins, aye.
Steve.
Patton, aye.
It is unanimous. We have accepted staff's recommendation. Next up, Joan Elizabeth Doyle, 10 Montgomery Court, Falmouth, Mass, for permission to reconstruct a deck. Alyssa.
Staff recommends a -2 under the state and bylaw. Resource area boundaries are not confirmed, and this project solely takes place in an AE flood zone.
Bird, so move.
Driscoll second.
We have a motion and a second to accept staff's recommendation. Questions or comments? All right, we're voting. Courtney.
Bird, aye.
Matthews, aye. Ron.
Driscoll, aye.
Ronnie.
Holman, aye.
Russ.
Robbins, aye.
Steve.
Patton, aye.
It is unanimous. We have accepted staff's recommendation. Next up, Maura McGoldrick, 29 Hunt Street, Falmouth, Mass, for permission to construct an addition and install a dry well. Alyssa.
Staff recommends a -2 under the state and bylaw. Resource area boundaries are not confirmed, and this project solely takes place in an AE flood zone.
Bird, so move.
Driscoll second.
We have a motion and a second to accept staff's recommendation. Questions or comments? We're voting. Courtney.
Bird, aye.
Matthews, aye. Ron.
Driscoll, aye.
Ronnie.
Holman, aye.
Russ.
Robbins, aye.
Steve.
Patton, aye.
It is unanimous. We have accepted staff's recommendation. Next up, TSM Realty Holdings LLC, 32 Chappaquoit Road, Falmouth, Mass, for permission to install a new Title V sewage disposal system and 4 dry wells. Alyssa.
Staff recommends a -3 under the state and a -2 under the bylaw. Resource area boundaries are not confirmed.
Bird, so move.
Driscoll second.
We have a motion and a second to accept staff's recommendation. Questions or comments? We're voting. Courtney.
Bird, aye.
Matthews, aye. Ron.
Driscoll, aye.
Ronnie.
Holman, aye.
Russ.
Robbins, aye.
Steve.
Patton, aye.
It is unanimous. We have accepted staff's recommendation. Next up, Sam Holloway, Bellingham Marine, 278 Scranton Avenue, Falmouth, Mass, for permission to establish land-based geotechnical test borings. Alyssa.
Staff recommends a -3 under the state and a -2 under the bylaw. Resource area boundaries are not confirmed.
Bird, so move.
Driscoll second.
We have a motion and a second to accept staff's recommendation. Questions or comments? We're voting. Courtney.
Bird, aye.
Matthews, aye. Ron.
Driscoll, aye.
Ronnie.
Holman, aye.
Russ.
Robbins, aye.
Steve.
Patton, aye.
It is unanimous. We have accepted staff's recommendation. Next up, our continued request for determination of applicability. Patrick Burke, 158 Church Street, Falmouth, Mass, for permission to reinstall mitigation plantings in accordance with Mass DEP number 25-4051. Alyssa.
Yes, the applicant's representative has requested a continuance until June 4th.
Bird, so move.
Driscoll second.
We have a motion and a second to continue this until June 4th. Questions or comments? We're voting on the continuance. Courtney.
Bird, aye.
Matthews, aye. Ron.
Driscoll, aye.
Ronnie.
Holman, aye.
Russ.
Robbins, aye.
Steve.
Patton, aye.
It is unanimous. We have continued this until June 4th. That's it for RDAs. Thank you to the staff for all that. Next up, our request for hearing under notice of intent. All hearings of the Falmouth Conservation Commission are held simultaneously under the authorities of the Massachusetts Wetlands Protection Act and the Falmouth Wetlands Bylaw. Although a single decision of the commission is issued, it represents a separate decision under each authority. As a reminder, public commenting is limited to 3 minutes. So I encourage you to stay within the purview of this board, which are the rules and regulations of the Wetlands Protection Act and the Falmouth Wetlands Bylaw, and how they pertain to a particular application. The chair reserves the right to stop any commenting that is disparaging or inconsequential to the hearing. First up tonight, Jim McLaughlin, Town of Falmouth, Department of Public Works, Chappaquoit Road, Falmouth, Mass, for permission to repair a sinkhole, undersheet the seawall, and install guardrails. Jen.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, I promoted Jim McLaughlin, the town's engineer, and I'm attempting to pull up Trey Ruthen, but I guess I promoted Tyler instead. Tyler, I'm going to put you back in attendees. Sorry about that. And Trey Ruthen is promoted, and he is from Sustainable Coastal Solutions. Okay, everybody has to stop jumping.
All right. Mr. McLaughlin, you're up, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm James McLaughlin, Town Engineer in Falmouth, and we're here tonight to request a order of conditions for repairs to Chappaquoit Road. Chappaquoit Road is a public way which runs from West Falmouth Highway to Chappaquoit Beach, where it's between that distance, it's either a 40 or a 50-foot right of way. Until you get past the beach, there's a turnaround that's gravel and sand. And that's about the end of the 50-foot wide private way, public way, I'm sorry. From there, it continues again as a public way, but it's much narrower. It's only 25 feet, and it goes from the cul-de-sac area up to a pair of granite pillars. And that's where the public right-of-way ends. The street continues in and around Chappaquoit Island, but that's all private. So the public section of the roadway that we're talking about is ends right at those pillars, and there's also a small guard shack there. The length of the 25-foot wide private way is about 950 feet, more or less, from the end of the beach up to the pillars. In the past, we've had order of conditions and made improvements to other sections of this roadway that have experienced erosion and sinkholes. And beginning in 2012 up until just a few years ago, we've done several sections with sheeting and revetment replacement. This is the last piece of the public way that we have not repaired, and the approach that we're taking on this piece is a little bit different than the others. At the initial stage, which is right now, what we're proposing to do is install sheeting to protect the roadway that is and has been experiencing undermining and sinkholes, limiting it to one section to one-way traffic. It's a small area, but it's one-way traffic nonetheless. So to restore it back to the two-way traffic, we're proposing to sheet that area, well, the entire length that hasn't been repaired to date, which is about 265 feet. At a later date, we come back and look at continuing with the armoring, which we've done on the other sections. But just to get the road protected at this point in time, we're looking at sheeting it as a first step. And as Jen mentioned, Trey Ruthven is here from Sustainable Coastal Solutions. He has a presentation that will go through all the details on his project, and he's also done all of the design work on the previous sections as well, so he's very familiar with it. So I'd like to turn it over to Trey.
Good evening, Trey Ruthven from Sustainable Coastal Solutions. If you don't mind, may I present the project to you through sharing?
Yes, sir.
Let's see. Oh, here we go. So, as Jim kind of alluded to, this project has been going on for the town since 2012, when the first section immediately north of the public beach parking lot failed. There was another section that was done northward of that a few years later. But this has all been going on since this revetment was put in place in the 1960s. And what you'll see shortly in a series of aerial photographs is how quickly the beach is eroded. And as the beach erodes and drops in elevation, what we're doing is exposing the bottom of the concrete seawall. And as that happens, we're able to scour out material from the roadway base, which is generating the sinkholes. As it destabilizes, there's large cracks in the seawall. The revetment is also dropping in elevation, basically typical coastal erosion problems. In our current project area, there is a sinkhole. We've lost one lane of the roadway. And so our goal is to repair that as quickly as possible to return Chappaquiddick Road to 2 lanes. Just a quick kind of background on the coastal processes going on here. Here's a photo from 1968. You can see the roadway here. Down here are the wide beach. And we'll quickly go through time here. 1975, you can see how quickly the beach started eroding, especially down here by the town parking lot section. 1986 and 2024, where there's really no beach left in front of that seawall and revetment. This is what we have today. You can see the concrete bollards out protecting the hole in the roadway to prevent traffic from driving through. If you're looking to the north, this is where the end of the town section of road goes. And what you're seeing here is gravel that the town has been filling in. So we're getting additional sinkholes. We're losing material from the roadway, and larger sinkholes are just a matter of time. It's not if, it is time. So we're going to lose the entire roadway section from there northward if we do not act. What we're proposing, as Jim said, is to drive steel sheeting right here landward of the concrete seawall. What that will do will isolate the roadway base from the Buzzards Bay and the ocean. That means our roadway will no longer be sinking in and then eroding out to the beach. We'll add a timber guardrail along this section, which will match the timber guardrail that is on the lower sections that we put in when we started. Most of this roadway didn't have a guardrail. There were some concrete bollards, but not enough to really prevent anybody from driving off the roadway. At the moment, there is no work proposed on the concrete seawall or the stone revetment seaward of the roadway. And once we're done with the sheeting, repaired the roadway base, we will resurface the roadway at the same width as it is now. So in reality, we're not changing much. We're just actually fixing the problem. For these, you can see here's the extension. It's 265 feet. Here to the north, which is on the left-hand side, that's where the granite pillars are, where it becomes a private roadway. Here at the southern end was the last section that we had done about, what was it, I think 6 years ago. So continue the sheeting that's been driven northward to the end of the town limit. This is just for reference, 211 and 214 Chappaquiddick Road. Again, just cross sections showing the same thing. Nothing in particular, just sheeting, repairing the roadway and paving along with guardrail. The resource areas that we'll be impacting are the buffer zone, which in reality, our project is entirely contained within the other resource areas. So we're really not impacting the buffer area. We are adjacent to land under the ocean with the revetment and seawall, but we're not doing any work on those, so we're not impacting that. Coastal beach, that would be seaward of the coastal bank, which is the concrete seawall. So we're not doing any work seaward of the concrete seawall, so we're not having any impact there. Our largest areas of impact are the coastal dune and barrier beach. The two resource areas overlap exactly. The roadway is actually constructed on top of the coastal dune, which would also be a barrier beach. The coastal bank, that's actually represents the coastal engineering structure. So that would be the concrete seawall and the revetment. And obviously we're impacting 265 linear feet on the landward side. And land subject to coastal storm flowage is the same area that we've been impacting. As I mentioned, so the project's contained entirely within the town roadway, so there's going to be no significant impact on any of the buffer resource areas, and actually no impacts on land under the ocean or coastal beaches. Again, coastal dunes, our impacts are contained to the surface. We're not actually changing the current function of the dune or the impairments to it. We are just resurfacing the road and actually putting material back in. So there'll be no change in the resource area's functions as they currently exist. Along with coastal bank, we're not changing how the coastal engineering structures operate or repairing them. We're just working immediately adjacent to them. In the future, if we come back in, we'll obviously be impacting those as we repair those structures. For the state, there is no regulations for land subject to coastal storm flowage. For the town, we're not destroying or impairing any existing functions of the landform, so there's no further impact to the wetland resources. The town wetland regulations advocate for in the VE zone, which we are in, that we plan for 2 feet of sea level elevation over the next 100 years. However, there's no practical way of actually raising Chappaquiddick Road without significant impacts to the wetlands and the coastal resource areas. And a project like that is obviously going to be a much larger project for the town as we consider how to move forward into the future, but kind of beyond the simple repairs that we need to get done to keep Chappaquiddick Road open. That's largely it for tonight. If the commission has any questions for me.
Thank you. You can stop sharing. Thanks. Jen.
No comments, Mr. Chairman. Thank you.
Alyssa.
No comments. Thank you.
All right. Commissioner comments or questions? Courtney.
Trey, what's the substrate like there? I mean, are you the reason for my question is, are there going to be impediments to driving the sheet piling, like huge erratic boulders and stuff like that?
We've done borings and we've not found any erratic boulders. It's largely just sand, medium coarse sand, largely because the roadway was built on the dune and then the coastal engineering structures were added later.
Okay, that's good. Thank you. No other questions.
Thank you. Ron.
No, I'm all set. Thank you. Good luck with that project.
Thank you.
All right. Ronnie.
I was down at the site and it's definitely a huge hazard and liability, and I think we need to move fast on this. That's it.
Agreed. Russ.
No comments.
All right. Steve.
No comments. Thank you, sir.
All right. Jen, is there anything in the public chat function, please?
Nothing in the public chat, Mr. Chairman.
Chairman, I'll make a motion to close the hearing and take it under advisement.
Driscoll second.
All right. We have a motion and a second to close the hearing. Last call. Questions or comments? All right. We're voting to close the hearing. Courtney.
Bird eye.
Matthews, aye. Ron.
Driscoll aye.
Ronnie.
Bowman, aye.
Russ.
Robbins, aye.
Steve.
Pat and I.
It is unanimous. We have closed this hearing. Thank you, Jen. Thank you, Trey.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Hey, Jim.
Thank you. Good night.
Good night, Jen.
Night, guys.
All right. Next up, Mark Stewart and Brina Urban, 3 Providence Street and 0 Little Bay Street, map and parcel ID 46A-18-000-000N as in North. Falmouth, Mass. For permission to replace a deteriorated concrete wall with a vinyl sheet piling. Jen.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, my screen was bouncing. I accidentally put Steve back in attendees. Steve, I'm trying to get you back in, and then I'm bringing in Raul. Don't know why Steve is not.
Kick him out already?
And then I'm promoting Raul Lizardi from Cape and Islands Engineering. I don't know why Steve isn't coming back in. I accidentally, yep, here comes Steve. Sorry about that,
All
Mr.
right.
Chairman. Good evening, Raoul. Sorry, Steve.
Let's wait a second, see if Steve gets in.
Sometimes my little people jump and I,
Sure.
there Steve is.
There he is. Welcome back, Steve. We missed you.
Thank you. I'm the wrong person to do that to.
Sorry about that, Steve. I'll try to make sure I don't do it again.
Yeah, I heard
Mr.
that
Li-
before.
Mr. Lizardi, you're up, sir.
Good evening. For the record, Raul Lizardi from Cape and Islands Engineering, representing the applicants for this project at number 3 and number 0 Little Bay Street. If I could share my screen.
Yes, sir.
So this application we're seeking an order of condition for proposed bulkhead reconstruction. The site, and I'll go in depth detail later about the 2 different addresses, but the site is along the midpoint along the eastern shorelines of Little Pond. The site plan that was submitted is this plan, and in particular, the section of interest is an existing concrete wall at this location. That wall was permitted back in 1982 under Order of Condition 25-399. Certificate of compliance was issued for that concrete wall back in 1993. And if I show a couple of photographs, the reasoning for this application is that the concrete wall is starting to break apart and slumping towards Little Pond. So the wall is failing. It hasn't completely collapsed, but it's just a matter of time before it does collapse. The property of 3 Providence Street is actually this lot right here. Little Bay Street is this section of land and water, and then lot N is this section right here, which is title land. So the reason we have the 2 properties listed as property owners is because the wall is constructed in the paper road layout. It's a private road, so we have both property owners signing on this notice of intent, but the applicant is solely the one property that benefits from this wall, which is 3 Providence Street. So the work, as I mentioned, is to replace the wall, but not in the same type of material. The existing wall is concrete. What we propose to do is remove the wall by excavating behind the wall to kind of loosen up or relieve the earth pressure that's currently applied to that wall. Remove portion of walls and install sheet piling in sections along the way. The resources that we're dealing with is, of course, Little Pond, land under the ocean, land containing shellfish. There is a marsh at this location. The wall itself constitutes a coastal bank, and the entire property is land subject to coastal storm flowage. All of the work happens within the buffer zones and within land subject to coastal storm flowage. A close-up look included on the plan is these 2 plan views. The top view is the existing wall, the existing concrete wall, and the bottom view is what we're proposing with the final sheet pile wall, which is going to be anchored back with several tiebacks. So there will be excavation approximately 10 feet back from the wall to be able to install these tiebacks that are being proposed. In terms of footprint, the wall along this side stays in the same location. It is not projecting any further seaward. There is this wing extension that was not, at least has not been physically identified that concrete exists there. So this extension will be just the return of that sheet pile wall. If there happens to be an existing return from the concrete wall in this location, that will be removed. We did receive comments from staff, and I wanted to go over a couple of those comments. The one first comment was, does the wall represent a coastal bank? And yes, by definitions of the Town of Falmouth Conservation Commission regulations, it is a man-made coastal bank. How will the salt marsh be protected? What we anticipate is that as sections of the wall get removed, a temporary sheathing is installed at the face of this salt marsh to prevent the salt marsh from collapsing as the wall is being removed. There is a pipe that kind of comes through the existing wall. I hope everybody can see it, but there is a pipe at this location of the wall. At the time, we didn't know what this pipe was. We reached out to the homeowner to find out what this pipe is for. And it looks like this is the discharge from a sump pump in the basement of the house. The applicant understands that this is not an ideal condition for the property and the wetlands. So he is going to engage with the person who services the sump pump in the basement to have this discharge on the land instead of directly onto the pond. There was another question regarding what will happen with the disturbed vegetation when the sheet pile wall gets installed in this location. That vegetation, I'm going to show a couple of clipped images of what that vegetation is. You will probably not really realize what this vegetation is. What we identify here, there is some bittersweet and there is multiflora in this area. So what we agree to is that any vegetation that gets removed, whether it's native or invasives, gets replanted with native species. But from the pictures that I have and the conditions that I saw on site, it's a lot of invasives. So it will be a benefit if anything gets removed, gets replanted with some native plants. Another question was regarding the area underneath the deck. This is a photograph that staff provided to us from conservation file records. The existing deck on the house was rebuilt sometime in 2015. This picture is from 2004. This is likely at the time when some other work was happening in relation to the septic system. In 2004, septic system back here was upgraded. But today, the deck has been improved or redecked or reconstructed. And what happened is, at the time in 2004, there was this floating little deck here on top of the concrete pad. The new deck actually has all of this covered on that floating deck. Underneath that floating deck is still the concrete pad. There's no increase in the footprint of it. What staff says is that that lower deck cannot be used in the future. I presume is what they're meaning. It cannot be used as part of the primary structure for any potential increase in habitable spaces. And another question conservation staff had was that they noticed, and I think I just messed up this image, but they noticed that the front yard, the front driveway, if I go back to the plans, the front driveway at this location and the existing walkway at this location are different than what appeared to be there in 2022. 2022, it looked like the driveway was just something like this, and the walkway was over here. And staff comments says that this modification for the applicant to calculate what mitigation would be required for the changes and increase in the hardscape. We did the calculations and we provided it to staff. It comes out to about 313 square feet of the increase in hardscape surfaces. The increase happens both in A and B zone. The majority happens in the A zone. And this, because we don't really have a survey of what the walkway and the driveway was at that time in 2020 or earlier, all we could do is just sketch the footprint from the aerial image that the staff provided us. So based on that comparison, there was an increase in development unrelated to the wall that we're proposing, but it comes out to roughly 313 square feet. The applicant agrees that that mitigation could go at this location to enhance the buffering that exists on that side of the project. With that, I will stop sharing and I'll pass it to the commissioners for questions.
So, Jen,
Raul, just for my clarification, the 313 square feet is the mitigation, not the increase in pavers.
That is correct.
And that is going to be buffered on the vegetation, the native vegetation you replace when the wall is replaced.
That will be in addition to any replacement.
In addition,
So
yeah, that's
replacement
what
and
I-
mitigation are, yes.
Perfect. Thank you, Raul. That's all I have.
all right, Alyssa,
No comments. Thank you.
all right. Commissioner comments and questions. Oh, we're gonna start with me. Woo-hoo. Raul, that lot N looks like it's underwater.
Yes,
And-
it's still an assessor's lot, but it is underwater.
Okay, so the wall is actually in the road layout, no?
It is, because it is a private road. The ownership fees goes to the center line. So lot N has some fees to it.
Which is why you have both owners listed. My question is, do you need permission from the Board of Selectmen? Do you need town approval for this?
It's a private paper road.
Okay. Okay, thank you. Ron,
Hey, can we put the sump pump into some dry wells instead of just running it on the ground?
The backyard elevation wise is roughly 4. Any dry well will likely be very close to groundwater.
Yeah.
Maybe one of the things that we can reach out to the applicant is that we are proposing some drainage improvement behind the new sheet pile wall. It's the typical type of stone trench that we do behind dry walls. I mean, sheet pile walls with weep holes through the walls. Is that maybe that could be enlarged to capture some of that dewatering that takes place in the basement.
Okay. That's it. Thank you.
all right. Ronnie,
No comment.
all right. Russ,
I'm good, Mr. Chairman.
Steve,
I just wanted to get back to staff and see what they were comfortable with Raul's comments on your earlier points, in your written points, not in your comments this evening. Yes, okay, fine. I'm good. And Mr. Chairman, thank you.
all right. Courtney,
I just want to follow up on a point you made, Jamie, and that is, it's not a town road, it's a private way. Is there an association that governs it? And if so, is any of their permission required for these activities? Jen?
Raul is correct. The two properties onto the center line. So we always handle
You're-
things along. with
and you're
development.
really quiet.
Yeah, and jack
like
up your
that, but-
microphone.
That better, guys?
Yeah,
Much better.
much better.
Okay, sorry about that. Raul is correct. The two properties owned to the center line, Courtney. There is no association
enough.
over there
That's
that
all
needs
I
to
wanted
give
to know.
permission.
Got it. Thank you.
No problem.
All right. Jen, is there anything in the public chat function, please?
Nothing in the public chat.
All right, what are you thinking?
I'll make a motion to close the hearing and take it under advisement.
Driscoll second.
We have a motion and a second to close the hearing. Last call. Questions or comments? We're voting to close the hearing. Courtney,
Bird eye.
Matthews, aye. Ron,
Driscoll, aye.
Ronnie,
Bowman, aye.
Russ,
Robbins, aye.
Steve.
Patton, aye.
It is unanimous. We have closed this hearing. Thank you, Raul.
Thank you.
Hero.
Got a couple more later.
Yep, I'm gonna put you back into attendees right now.
All right, next up, our continued request for a hearing under a notice of intent. The first one had been previously continued. The next one had been previously continued. And the next one has been previously continued. However, we have some more, don't worry. All is not lost. Next up, Richard Romano, 10 Fiddler's Cove Road, Falmouth, Mass. For permission to remove an existing screen porch, construct an addition, and install mitigation plantings. Jen. And Alyssa, this has not been previously open, so the quorum is all of us here tonight. That's the way I have it.
I don't remember. Mike, we haven't
Ooh.
opened this, right? I
No,
have it.
we have not opened this because, we have not opened this. I can't remember the reason. I think it was, advertising issue or something.
That's
Oh.
all right. So the quorum is everyone here tonight.
Thank you.
Mr. Borselli, you're up, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the commission. For the record, Mike Borselli, Falmouth Engineering, and I represent the applicant, Richard Romanow. With your permission, I'd like to share my screen. I'm sharing with you the site plan. This is lot 159, number 10, Fiddler's Cove Road. This lot contains just over 26,000 square feet of land. It has frontage on a man-made canal on the southwest side. There is a stone revetment bordering the edge of the property at the man-made canal's edge. This has a slope to it, so it meets the definition of coastal bank. So we've identified it as a coastal bank, and we've shown the top of the coastal bank. We've shown the 50-foot no disturbance zone A and the 50-foot outer buffer zone B on the plan as well. There's an existing house on the property, deck, typical landscaping features, driveway. The project is a renovation that has two elements. First, on the south side, shaded in a tan color, is a proposed sunroom office addition that will replace, if you look closely, you can see it in the background. I'll zoom in here. You can see the outlines of a screen-in porch. A portion of it's going to occupy the existing deck. So those impervious surfaces are already accounted for, but this back section is partially in the outer buffer zone B, this sliver between this red line and the boundary of the outer buffer zone B. So that's 40 square feet. And we're proposing 2-to-1 mitigation in the form of 80 square feet here, shaded green. And we specify the plant species, size, and spacing. The second element is over the existing house in this larger shaded area. This shaded portion of the existing house is to be modified to include a second-story dormer. All that work is within the footprint of the existing house. That sums up the project. There were comments from staff, and I'll just touch on those. I believe back in like 2011 or 2012, there was a plan and a review by Conservation Commission that required certain mitigation elements, and it appears that some of these are not in place, or they died and were not replaced. The first one is there were 3 cedars proposed in this area that I'm circling just above the words beach grass. When I got the staff report, I saw them on an older plan. I concur they're not there. I've spoken to the client and he says they died. He never replaced them. So I advised him they had to be replaced. Second, there's an area over here that was a previously required bayberry that was to be installed around some existing inkberry. That looks like most, if not all, of the bayberry isn't there, and the inkberry's been being pruned through the years. And your staff points out that that has to be reinstalled and that the pruning of the inkberry needs to cease. And of course, any new bayberry that's installed shouldn't be pruned either. So I will advise my client on that. There's some raised garden beds. I'll have to look at, talk to staff about where those are that they requested we show on the plan. And finally, back in 2012, there was a different orientation of this dock. I'll have to check that. There's a note to please revise the survey of the dock to match the site plan. So I have to check that. This is a flow that might have shifted around, but I can submit a revised plan that shows that more accurately as well. So that sums up the project. I'm hopeful there won't be any significant other issues or concerns, and that these staff comments can be handled under conditions and that you could vote to close tonight. With that, I'll stop sharing and I'm here for questions.
Thanks, Mike. Jen?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, if the board is comfortable, I'm sure we can handle the proposed revisions to the plan under conditions. I don't think it warrants a continued hearing.
That's
That's
good.
all.
All right. Alyssa?
No comments. Thank you.
All right. Commissioner comments and questions. Ron?
Hey, Mike, we trust. Thank you. That's all.
Thank you.
All right. Ronnie?
No comment.
Russ?
I'm good, Mr. Chairman.
Steve?
Yeah, I'm all set. Thank you.
All right. Courtney?
No comments.
All right. And I'm good. Jen, is there anything in the public chat function, please?
Nothing in the public chat, Mr. Chairman.
I'll make a motion to close the hearing and take it under advisement.
Driscoll second.
All right. We have a motion and a second to close the hearing. Last call, questions or comments? All right, we're voting to close the hearing. Courtney?
Bird eye.
Matthews, aye. Ron?
Driscoll, aye.
Ronnie?
Coleman, aye.
Russ?
Robbins, aye.
Steve?
Patton, aye.
It is unanimous. We have closed this hearing. Thank you, Mike.
Thank you.
All right, next up, Secondusset Hills Association, Inc., 200 Secondusset Road, Falmouth, Mass., for permission to reconstruct a set of access stairs, replace decking on a walkway, and conduct beach nourishment. And the quorum is all of us here tonight. Jen?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, we continued this hearing for receipt of natural heritage comments. We did receive those. Mike, did you notice they put a hard time of year restriction on that?
Yes.
I was surprised they were not even going to let you nourish the dune with like a monitor, but there was no provision for that. It's a hard time of year restriction.
Yep, we get it.
Okay.
I've spoke to the committee chairman that's responsible for this. They understand. It's a double-edged sword. It's everything is can function for this summer. They wouldn't really want to get into like heavy construction from this point on anyway. So the window, I think it's April to August, is workable, and they'd start the work after
Okay.
probably after Labor Day.
Like I said, usually we see them with, you can hire to monitor. If there's no bird activity, you can proceed, and they just left that out of this one. So we'll have to write it in like they.
That's fine. It's probably good to go through another summer in case anything happens. They can do the work
Okay.
after the season.
Okay, that's all, Mr. Chairman.
Alyssa. Oop, busted.
Sorry, I'm off my game. I have no comments. Thank you.
All right. Let's see, Ronnie, on this quorum was a continued hearing, so I'm going to skip you. Russ.
I'm good, Mr. Chairman.
All right, Steve.
No comments, thank you.
All right, Courtney.
No comments.
All right, I'm good. Ron.
I'm all good too. Thank you.
All right. Jen, is there anything in the public chat function, please?
Nothing in the public chat function, Mr. Chairman.
I'll make a motion to close the hearing and take it under advisement.
Driscoll second.
All right, we have a motion and a second with this quorum to close this hearing. Last call, questions or comments? All right, we're voting. Courtney.
Bird eye.
Matthews, aye. Ron.
Driscoll aye.
Russ.
Robbins, aye.
Steve.
Madden, aye.
It is unanimous with this quorum. We have closed this hearing. Thank you, Mike.
Thank you.
Is this the Mike Borselli show? I think it is. Next up, request to amend an existing order of conditions. First up, Pinson Builders, 362 Acapesket Road, Falmouth, Mass. Request to amend the order of conditions for Mass DEP number 25-4831 to revise the planting plan. Jen.
Yes, Mike, are you staying on for this one since you were the engineer on record?
I'm just going to open it up and turn it over to Ian.
Okay, and then I've promoted Ian Warner from Acer
Landscape Design.
Thank you. Sorry about that, Ian. Acer Landscape Design to present their projects, Mr. Chairman.
All right, Mr. Borselli.
Thanks again, Mr. Chairman and members of the commission. Mike Borselli, Falmouth Engineering. I represent the applicant along with Ian Warner. And Ian, do you want me to share the plan or do you have it?
No, that would be great if you could. Thank you.
With your permission, Mr. Chairman, I'll share my screen.
Yes, sir.
Thank you. Basically, we received an order of conditions to do work on this property, including a raise and reconstruct of the house, a raise and reconstruct of a beach cabana, and all of the associated required mitigation planting. The applicant has been working with Ian on the design. The original design was taken from the model by that I mean the plant types and species that were originally designed for a different applicant. So when we filed the subsequent notice of intent for the now current owner of the property, we kept with that theme, but they've done some work and looked at the plant varieties and species and worked with Ian, and they have a different plant palette basically that they want to propose. I don't often use the terms plant palette, so I'm out of my league. I'm going to turn it over to Ian, and I'm here for questions.
Thanks, Mike. Ian, you're up, sir.
Thank you, Mike. My name is Ian Warner. I am from Acer Landscape Design. I'm representing the clients. I've worked hard with the clients to try and increase the variety of plants. With this planting, I think originally there was only 6 different species covering the whole of the 8,200 square feet of planting. And so along with the trees, we've upped that to about 9 species, all of which are native to the area and also can handle both the hot, sunny site that we have here on the slope, and also there is some shade provided by a big existing oak tree that is just above the pool cabana there. we've gone back and forth a few times with staff, and they, in the hopes that we are going to be able to do this through just administrative, but they wanted us to be able to come to you guys. So with that, I'll just open it up to any questions that anybody may have.
All right. Thank you. Mike, if you would stop sharing.
Yep.
Jen.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, we just have concerns with the use of the blueberry sod on the bank itself. I mean, there's no reason why we couldn't have more substantial shrubs on the bank. We have noticed for the last several projects, the use of huckleberry sod has not done well. So we do have concerns with making that entire slope low bush blueberry. And there's no real reason for it. It won't obstruct the view from the pool. There could be more substantial, a more substantial shrub layer on that slope. I'd like to remind the board that this house, the footprint of this house increased significantly on this lot, which required the mitigation, and we've been going back and forth with the mitigation palette on this property since day one. So we do have concerns with the use of just blanketing that fairly steep bank with low bush blueberry. Especially with the blueberry sod. Again.
So just
excuse me.
Sorry.
The use of huckleberry sod has not done well on various sites around town. So again, there would be a little bit concerned with the blueberry sod. And that's all I have, Mr. Chairman.
All right. Mr. Warner.
Sorry about that. I was thinking that Jen was done there. One thing that I did want to say is that we were hoping to interplant many of the other shrub species within that blueberry sod, so it's not necessarily a full only blueberry covering that entirety of the slope. The previous plan that was approved did not have specific layouts of any of the plants, so we were just going with a representation that was the same as the previous one.
Well, that's not what your plan shows, Ian. It shows a big, circle of blueberry sod. So if you want to intersperse, that's
Can
fine.
we just do that
We'd like
when
to
we're
see that represented on plan.
Can we do that when we're planting?
It's really and not particularly fair to the staff or the commission to sit there and say, I'll do this in the field. We've been going back and forth with the team on this project to try to get the mitigation, to a place where staff can support it, and we keep receiving pushback. So I'm right now uncomfortable saying that, we could do it in the field because I'm not quite sure how much cooperation we would have in the field. And I don't want to have to bring this back to the board. So if you'd like to intersperse that, I would like to see that on a plan, or at least give us a percentage or a quantity of the additional shrubs that you're going to plant in the blueberry sod.
So, okay, so we were considering that the plant list that we sent over to you showing all of the quantities, that those plants would be interspersed. So there wouldn't be necessarily additional ones than we're already proposing. They're just pocketed within that blueberry sod.
Alyssa, do we have the quantities?
There is another sheet, Jen. There's in your packet, there was a letter, and then there was a separate sheet with quantities. If I may, like Jen was saying, this first came up about a year ago to change the planting plan. We've worked with Mr. Lemon throughout the process with 2 or 3 variations of the plan. And at the staff level, the sheer square footage of very low growing shrubs that are typically not approved by this commission were quite dominant in the planting plan, so staff was uncomfortable approving it. We did offer sort of a compromise where the area around the pool, as the focal lookout point, could be planted with the lower growing species. But the plan before you today shows an intermix, and it's still a very large portion of lower growing species. So that's why the staff wanted to bring it to the commission tonight.
Majority of that area that is proposed to be low bush blueberry is also underneath a very large oak tree that is on site. So it's an area that doesn't really have a lot of height availability to it. And it's a deep dark shade. For which the low bush blueberry can handle.
Jen, if I may, I'm going to be the bad guy. This plan is like so vague. It's nothing is placed. You just listed everything, and your plan only says low bush blueberry sod in that area. It says nothing about interspersing anything else. So I, for one, would not accept this plan the way it is, just to say it. So,
okay,
Jen, anything else?
We were just putting
Steve,
it as it was drawn previously, and it was only called out as different areas that had a.
You don't even refer to that, so no. Jen, anything else?
Not for me, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Alyssa.
Not at this time. Thank you.
All right. Russ, we're going to start with you for commissioner comments.
Yeah, I'm going to support what the staff wants to do there. Let's get it listed out properly, and I think it'll make everybody happy. But other than that, I can't support it unless you do that.
Thank you. Steve?
I agree with you, Mr. Chairman. I'm set to.
Thank you. Courtney?
I concur as well. I think we need to see a defined plan that staff is comfortable with, then they can build it and there are no questions. You don't just tell somebody to go ahead and build a house and no plans. It just opens the door to horror shows. So I'd like to see it defined for the comfort of the commission, for your comfort, your client's comfort. Everybody knows and are on the same page.
Yeah.
So if I
The other
could,
thing is, if you're going to take, if you're going to take plants from somewhere else in this mitigation area to put them in there, then are the other areas going to be covered adequately? That's rhetorical. I'm just throwing that out there. Let me finish with commissioner comments, Mike.
Sorry.
Ron.
Yeah, I agree with the previous comments. Thank you.
Okay. Ronnie.
I agree as well.
Okay. Mr. Waselli, you were saying?
So it sounds like what I'm hearing is you want more of a specific landscape plan with the plant materials that we're showing on this plan, superimposed and listed out just as species, but not identified in where they specifically were in those shaded areas. You want that more detailed plan. So that's something that can be done. There's no issue with that. So,
a standard, Mike. I mean, I don't know.
I agree.
It's, there's no spacing listed. There's no note about the plants being taken from A to put into B. So,
yeah, I hear you loud and clear. So I think we need a continuance so that plan can be provided. But I mean, if you listen or read the staff report, it generally was well received as far as the plant types and varieties. It's just not that there's no specificity about where they're planted in the spacing. And of course, the low bush blueberry area needs to be worked out and not just be the low bush blueberry sod. That's what I'm hearing. So I don't think we're going to convince you otherwise. So we have to provide you with a plan that responds to that.
Jen?
Yes, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, Mike. Thank you, Ian. I know that Alyssa had given, I believe, Mr. Libin some guidance about, we understand the pools at that area, plant the smaller plants near the pool. That's fine. The sweet fern, the low bush, even the New Jersey tea up by the pool, give them a little like breathing space on that pool. But as soon as you start to dive down that slope, we'd like to see something a little bit more substantial. I understand about the oak tree, but we have planted several shaded areas in town with shrubs, and we just don't feel that they're going to be an impediment to the view or anything else. So we can work with the applicant's team, Mr. Chairman, to try to bring a plan to you that will work.
It's fine, but the burden's on them to come up with a plan. I mean, this plan is just, I mean, it's vague. It doesn't even show that oak tree. Or if it does, it's like in the background. Right. Anyway, I'm done.
Mike, how long do you think your team will need?
That's really a question for Ian. There's no effort on my part on this. I was just trying to facilitate the hearing.
Okay. And so we generally like things in our office a week in advance. So we could do June 4th. If you could get us a plan by the 28th, we could work with you maybe next week.
Okay, that's
or is
fine.
Is that too tight of a timeline? If
No,
not,
I think
our
we
next
can.
hearing
I
would
think
be
we can figure
11th.
that out.
Okay, the 4th.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right. Hold on, Jen. Do we have? Is there anything in the public chat function, please?
Nothing in the public chat, Mr. Chairman.
Okay. All right, Courtney.
I'll make a motion to continue this hearing until what, June 4th?
June 4th.
Yep.
Second, Robbins.
Yeah.
Thank you. All right, we have a motion and a second to continue this till June 4th. Last call, questions or comments? All right, we're voting on the continuance. Courtney.
Bird eye.
Matthews, aye. Ron.
Driscoll, aye.
Ronnie.
Bowman, aye.
Russ.
Robbins, aye.
Steve.
Patton, aye.
It is unanimous. We have continued this till June 4th. Thank you, Mike. Thank you, Ian.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Have a good night.
Next up, Friends of Knobska Light, Inc., 233 Knobska Road, Falmouth, Mass. Request to amend the order of conditions for Mass DEP number 25-4897 to revise the planting plan. I sense a theme. Jen.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, excuse me. I am promoting Tyler Gendreau to present his project. This was continued to June 4th. Tyler's coming.
Good evening, Commissioners. For the record, Tyler Goudreau, Environmental Landscape Solutions, on behalf of the applicant, Friends of Knobska Lighthouse. I'd like to just give a brief background and kind of update on the project. So originally, we came before you for invasive species removal. We have since completed 2 to 3 applications. Following that hearing, we worked with Cape and Islands Engineering to permit some subsurface drainage that has since been installed as well. And currently we're in a maintenance and monitoring phase. So we're checking in on reemergence of specifically the knotweed, especially after excavation. Sometimes we can have some new shoots popping up. But this application, if I can share my screen, the areas that we are proposing, some changes in plant species are pertaining to sight lines, and there's a lot of traffic that comes off this road with parking with the lighthouse. So the first area we proposed was the removal of some shrubs. There were 20 shrubs that were in this area, and we were proposing 24. We're supplementing with the same native meadow mix that we're doing across the aisle. Based on staff comments, there were 20 shrubs that were removed from this area. They had mentioned pushing them landward. We were thinking the possibility of locating them in this meadow area, as there's not many shrubs that were proposed here, but would be happy to discuss with staff and the commission if they were amenable to that. The second area where there were proposed changes, where there were some shrubs in this area that we located shrubs along the edge in order to define that border, and we actually extended that pollinator garden to fill in those gaps. The right-hand meadow has remained the same, but again, going back to my previous statement, we'd like to source those 20 shrubs in that area and work with staff if you are amenable to that, but be happy to answer any comments.
Thank you. You can stop sharing, please. Jen.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, I'd be amenable, but working with Tyler to replace those shrubs. We just want to have that shrub material on site. We've seen various versions of the planting plan out there, and each version, less and less shrubs are being proposed. So the increase in the meadow over the last, I think we've seen this, this is the third time we've seen this, Tyler, this area.
Yeah, there's a lot of
there's been a lot of revisions and amendments to this, and each time that meadow area just gets larger and larger. We do need to compensate for the hardscape that went there, but we will work with you to relocate those 20 shrubs to a different area on the property within the buffer.
Great.
That's all, Mr. Chairman.
Alyssa.
No comments. Thank you.
All right. Commissioner comments or questions? Steve.
I don't have any questions. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
All right. Courtney.
No questions.
All right. So Jen, should there be more plants with what they're proposing?
If they relocate the 20 shrubs and don't remove them from the site and put them in another established meadow area, I would be happy with that.
Okay. Thank you. Ron.
No, I'm all set. Thank you.
Okay. Ronnie.
No comment.
Okay. Russ.
All set, Mr. Chairman.
All right. Jen, is there anything in the public chat function, please?
Nothing in the public chat regarding this project, Mr. Chairman.
Oh, now you're scaring me. You haven't said that all night.
I've been waiting.
All right. What are you thinking?
We're ready to close it. I'll make a motion to close the hearing and take it under advisement.
Driscoll second.
We have a motion and a second to close the hearing. Last call, questions or comments? We're voting to close the hearing. Courtney.
Bird eye.
Matthews, aye. Ron.
Driscoll aye.
Ronnie.
Bowman, aye.
Russ.
Robbins, aye.
Steve.
Patton, aye.
It is unanimous. We have closed this hearing. Thank you, Tyler.
Thank you all very much.
Thank you, Tyler.
Next up, Minot Yacht Club, 68 Yacht Club Road, Falmouth, Mass. Request to amend the order of conditions for Mass DEP number 25-4963 to reconfigure an existing licensed dock. Jen.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, I have promoted Raul Lizardi from Cape and Islands Engineering to present his amendment. Welcome back, Raul.
Mr. Lizardi, you're up, sir.
Good evening. For the record, Raul Lizardi from Cape and Islands Engineering. Representing this application. If I could share my screen.
Yes, sir.
So this application is to amend the order of condition that was received last year, order of condition number 25-4963. That permit was for the construction or installation of a steel sheet pile wall behind the existing stone revetment. The property is located at 68 68 Yacht Club, and the property is owned by the Minot Yacht Club. The project is located at the western shores of Eel Pond, right at the mouth of Eel Pond to the sound. And if we look at an aerial image, this is the site in question. So the project last year was to permit a steel bulkhead installed behind the existing stone revetment. The reason that was proposed is because the flow that's flowing through this opening or this mouth has been eroding the base of the channel at this location, and the stones of the revetment have been slowly slumping into that void, and it has created sinkholes behind the revetment, similar to what's happening and what the town of Falmouth presented to this board just a few, probably an hour ago. So the application is to amend the permit. The permit submitted a plan to propose this sheet pile. For the installation of that sheet pile, this existing and licensed pier had to be removed. The timber structure had to be removed to install the sheet piles. And the project last year was proposed to rebuild the pier in kind. However, when the structure was removed and the sheet pile was being installed, this is what happened with those two piles that were holding the fixed pier. There was not enough penetration in the substratum to hold the piles in place, and the piles suddenly floated away. So thankfully, it happened during construction, and it's something that could be remedied at this point. But in time, with the erosion that's happening at the bottom of this channel, less and less of those piles will be actually supporting any structure. So because there has to be new piles to replace this, new longer piles, what the applicant wants to take advantage is to redesign the pier. So since they have that new steel sheet pile at this location, instead of rebuilding the pier at this location, they want to take advantage and rebuild the pier here. But instead of building a fixed pier, they would rather bridge from the face of the existing steel sheet pile to the float with a ramp. The two piles that kind of floated away here will be used at this location, and the three floating piers would be realigned in this location to use a ramp that's roughly 32 feet long. We did reach out to DEP Waterways, and this modification using the existing floats and not going any further into the channel would be approvable for the license under a minor modification. So I believe that is the same case with this board. It will be a simple modification to what's already been permitted in the past. There's actually more kind of bridging over the resources. So instead of having a fixed structure that stays in place year round, this entire structure is seasonal, so gets removed at all times, whereas before, approximately 25 feet of the pier was always permanent. So that's the amendment that we are proposing, and I'll stop sharing and I'll be taking any questions.
Thanks, Raul. Jen.
Raul, are you roughly in the same square footage area?
So in terms of square footage, we're actually reducing. There was a project statistics shown.
If you're reducing it, Raul, that makes me happy. And a visa. Thank you.
Let me correct myself. It's going from 560 square foot footprint wise to 569. So there's a 9-foot increase. And I'll explain. It was the existing ramp traverses over roughly 10 feet of one of the floats.
Yeah.
And the traversing is now less.
Okay, that's fine. Thank you. All set, Mr. Chairman.
All right, Alyssa.
No comments. Thank you.
All right. Commissioner comments and questions. Courtney.
So if there were a hurricane, can this thing be removed?
So yes, this time the entire structure is seasonal. So if there is a warning for such an event, the yacht club can proactively get the structures out of the water.
And they'll be restored on the high ground on the yacht club site? Is that the?
So right, the site, the paid parking area is where they move the structures to.
Okay. Thank you. No other questions.
All right. Ron.
Well, do the work on Washburn Island have any effect on this work?
We hope it's a positive effect. The town did that kind of like dredging and cutting up the nose or the tip of Washburn Island because it's been bottlenecking the flow into Eel River, and it's been causing a lot of erosion along the western shores of Eel Pond. And that was one of the problems with this site. The stones, the revetments were falling off because of the erosion underwater. So hopefully what the town has done is an improvement, and this additional change to the flow, which is not much, but it is still 10 feet that we're kind of taking away from the channel. So it allows more room for people to navigate the channel.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. That's all I have.
Okay. Ronnie.
No comment.
Okay. Russ.
I'm good with it, Mr. Chairman.
Okay. Steve.
I don't have any comments, but while I was visiting frequently at this site, people come up to find out why you're there, which is not so bad. But this one guy walks up and tells me that he's going to dinner with Ron Driscoll's wife. I thought, what? Okay, all right, I'm out. Thank you.
He was walking two big dogs, wasn't he?
Yeah, he was.
We digress.
Yes, I'm sorry, sir.
No. Need the levity sometimes. I mean, that's what we're here for, right? Once in a while we have a hearing, but let's cover our social stuff too. I mean, geez, we don't get together that often. All right. Jen, is there anything in the public chat function, please?
Nothing in the public chat, Mr. Chairman.
I'll make a motion to close the hearing and take it under advisement.
Driscoll second.
All right. We have a motion and a second to close the hearing. Last call, questions or comments? We're voting to close the hearing. Courtney.
Bird eye.
Matthews, aye. Ron.
Driscoll, aye.
Ronnie.
Bowman, aye.
Russ.
Ovens, aye.
Steve.
Aye.
It is unanimous. We have closed this hearing. Thank you, Raul.
Thank you.
All right. Next up are continued requests to amend an existing order of conditions. First up, Donna Haber-Kornberg, trustee, Donna Haber-Kornberg, 2021 Revocable Living Trust, 70 Kerry Lane, Falmouth, Mass. Request to amend the order of conditions for Mass DEP number 25-4742 to permit a fieldstone wall, ramps, and a relocated masonry wall after the fact. Jen.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, Raul Lizardi from Cape and Islands is remaining with us for this one. I have also promoted Jeff Oppenheim representing the property owner and Brian Wall representing, I believe, Paul, Brian, you're representing Paul Moskowski?
Moskowski Landscape.
Okay, yep. And am I promoting Paul Moskowski up? I just tried. He declined to become a panelist.
I think if you can promote him and he accepts, he should be here in case there are any factual questions.
You hear that,
Did you
Paul?
just say
Your
he
lawyer's
declined?
telling you to accept. So, yep, he's coming now.
There he is.
All right, before anybody starts, Alyssa, just to clarify, the quorum excludes Ron and Ronnie?
Correct.
Thank you. So the quorum tonight is Courtney, myself, Russ, and Steve, just for clarity. All right, Raul, you're up, sir.
Good evening. For the record, representing the applicant, Raul Lizardi from Cape Islands Engineering, and as Jen mentioned, Brian Wall, Jeff Oppenheim, and Paul Miskowski also representing this project. The project was open at one public hearing and then one site meeting. The project is at 70 Cary Lane, and it is for an after-the-fact amendment to the permit that was obtained to build a pool, build a retaining wall to hold the pool, and some plantings and invasives removal at the time. After the last site visit we had, it looked like the feedback we received from the commissioners is that the project should go back to the original footprint that was permitted a couple of years ago, instead of the amendment that we are requesting. Just for kind of refreshing our minds on what the project was, I'm going to start sharing a couple of photographs from the site from the original hearing. So the project in question mainly has to do with portion of the deck and wall that were constructed within 10 feet of buffer zone A and the limit of work. So roughly this section was built inside the 10-foot setback to the limit of work. This fieldstone and the fill between the two retaining walls, the fieldstone and the retaining wall, is within the 10-foot setback. What we offered to propose was cut back the deck, but keep the wall, because the wall is integral now to the pool. The contractor has not secured an engineer who has been able to redesign a wall that is 5 foot closer to the pool without the pool being completely rebuilt. So based on the extent of finances that has to go into rebuilding the entire pool and pool wall, we're still trying to seek approval of this amendment to keep the wall at this location. When we visited the site, we could tell that the as-built locations is not causing any erosion or any problems within the buffer zone A, which is at this location. It is completely vegetated, and we can all walk around the existing wall without having to actually encroach onto the buffer zone A. We do agree that the fieldstone wall that is in this location should come out, and it can come out. The contractor believes they can remove that wall without interfering with anything else with the project or with the wall. So I'll pass it on to Brian Wall. Brian Wall submitted a letter for this application, kind of reinforcing that the existing conditions on site is not harming the buffer zones and is not causing any harm to the resources in question. So Brian, if you can take it from here.
Thank you, Raul. Mr. Chairman, members of the commission, as Jen asked me at the beginning of this, I'm part of the team representing Miskowski Landscape, who was the contractor that did most of this work and oversaw most of the work. And we do agree with what Raul said about the fieldstone wall and the leveling or the fill of that area. My comments are focused primarily on attempting to persuade the commission to grant after the fact approval for the block retaining wall to remain. And so having said that, I did review the prior hearing and I did talk with Raul, and I do understand that there seems to be kind of a feeling that the plan should be conformed to. And so what I'd like to do is focus on that. And I'd like to begin by saying the following, that when the commission is presented with a request for grant of after the fact permission, The relevant question that I would suggest the commission should be reviewing is whether or not permission can be granted for the proposed project as built, and whether it complies with the regulations and meets the performance standards. And if it does, then the commission can grant the after the fact permission. And if it does not comply, then obviously the commission must require that the applicant remove the wall and replace it where the plan says. And I would suggest to you that this particular project falls into the former category. This as-built wall complies with all of your regulations and meets all of your performance standards, and therefore you can grant permission for this. I'm going to make that point in a little bit more detail. And just as foreshadowing, I have two other additional points that I'm going to make tonight. And the first is that there are significant equitable reasons that support this request. And lastly, is there significant reasons why you should not require removal and reconstruction. So let me turn to meeting the regulations. The most restrictive Zone A no disturbance zone at issue here is the 75-foot to the 75-foot no disturb buffer to the inland bank. The project plan approved the limit of work just landward of this zone, and Raul showed that when he showed the photos. The wall at issue was approved 87 feet from the inland bank. As built, the wall is approximately 81 feet from the inland bank. It's 6 feet closer than the approved location, but it's still 6 feet inside of the line of the Zone A. And let me restate that. The wall is not inside of the Zone A at all. In other words, your Zone A no disturb zone is fully presented by the project. The wall is 6 feet further landward than the most landward edge of the 75-foot no disturb zone. So your buffer zone is complied with. The issue here is that in the preamble to the buffer zone regulations, there's a requirement that when there's a fully non-disturbed or a fully naturally vegetated Zone A, there's a sentence that says that the commission will also include as part of the project a so-called no structure zone, and that all has capital letters. The N, the S, and the Z are capitalized. So the preamble says that a no structure zone is to be imposed adjacent to the no disturb zone, and the preamble explains why. It says that a setback is required because alteration of the area adjacent to the no disturb zone, and I'm quoting, invariably results in alterations of the no disturb zone. However, having said that, I want to bring to your attention, there's no regulation whatsoever in 1018 that specifies the size of this no structure zone. Having practiced before this commission for many years, it's my experience that you have historically required a 10-foot setback. But again, there's nowhere in the regulation that says it has to be 10 or it has to be 15 or 5. The commission I have seen many times explain the reason why it asks for 10. And I've heard them say many times, it's because when structures are permitted near the no disturb zone, they often require maintenance, and maintenance activities require space around the building for such things as access and putting up a ladder, that kind of thing. So in this particular case, the structure at issue is a block retaining wall that is 6 feet setback from the no disturb zone. The retaining wall doesn't require any maintenance, and it's not going to require any maintenance. And so thus the reasons that the commission usually imposes the 10 feet don't exist at this particular site and aren't pertinent to this particular project. So given all that information about the preamble, the lack of a specified setback, and this particular structure not requiring maintenance, I would suggest to the commission that you could draw the following conclusions. One is the no structure zone is not a regulation. The size of the no structure zone is not specified. The as-built project, therefore, is not precluded by any of your regulations. And lastly, there is a 6-foot setback to the 75-foot buffer, and therefore there is a setback that exists that we would suggest to you is appropriate under the circumstances given the structure that's at issue. So in summary, this project as built is not precluded and meets the spirit and intent in the letter of your regulations. The other two matters I want to raise briefly are, the first is about the equitable reasons. As Raul alluded to, the supplier of the pool has been consulted about this, and I submitted a letter with my letter. It's an enclosure with my letter. The supplier has said that if the retaining wall has to be dismantled and rebuilt, the integrity of the pool is going to be irreparably compromised. And as a result, the project was going to require the pool to be removed and entirely replaced. And we would suggest to you that that's going to cause a very, very significant expense. And since this complies with all the regulations, there's really no reason to require this to be done and for this expense to be incurred. Furthermore, a related point to that is, if the wall is to be removed and replaced, you're going to gain 4 feet. And so I would argue to you respectfully that that 4 feet farther from the no disturb zone, which is fully preserved, is not going to result in any appreciable or significant increase in protection to the resource. And so therefore, when you weigh that fact that there's no increase in protection versus the expense that's going to be incurred, it makes that expense, it makes that condition look unreasonable, respectfully. And lastly, there's some real world consequences to think about. If the project has to be done, the wall has to be removed, there is going to be a significant amount of work that's going to be undertaken in this particular site. And for those of that you have gone out there, you know that the slope at issue is very, very steep and significant. And even under the best circumstances, when staked hay bales are put in and sedimentation barriers are put in, sometimes there can be something that goes wrong with the project, or there can be a significant storm event that comes at the wrong time and causes the project to be washed out. And I would just suggest to you, for the reasons that I've said, that that is no appreciable increase in protection, compliance with your regulations. There's just no reason why to require this wall to be taken out and replaced 4 feet farther away and risk the resources from all of the work that's going to have to be done. So having said all of that, I would respectfully request that the commission consider the request and grant after the fact approval for the project.
Good, Mr. Wall.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And here to answer any questions, and again, Mr. Miskowski is online as well.
All right. Mr. Oppenheim, do you have anything you'd like to add at this point? Mr. Oppenheim?
I think he's trying to
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I would just like to speak in support of my colleague's presentation. I think it's very cogent. It's sensible. I think the commission has a discretion to do an amendment to the original order. And I would urge you to do that because it does not take a lot of imagination to appreciate if you do not follow the suggestion what issues will be presented to my disabled elderly client who lives at the property. So I would urge you to approve what Attorney Wall is requesting on behalf of my client. Thank you.
All right. Mr. Miskowski, you're off in the distance somewhere. Do you have anything you'd like to add at this point? All right, never mind. Jen?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, the staff's comment remain unchanged. We feel the wall and the pool should be relocated to the previously approved location. And I have no concerns that if that had to happen, that the resource areas couldn't be fully protected. That's all.
As per normal, right? Alyssa?
I support Jen's comments. Thank you.
All right, commissioner comments and questions. I think I'm going to start. Mr. Wall, I'm not sure I got this right. You said that 4 feet would not be an appreciable difference. However, we're talking about 6 feet, are we not?
Well, let me disclose to the chairman that I went to law school because I'm not good at math. So Raul wants to, and that's no joke. If Raul needs to correct me, that's the case. You know, I stand corrected. But the way I looked at the plan was that the approved location was 87 feet from the inland bank, and there's a line on the plan that shows that. And then the as-built location is 81 feet. So if I do the math, that means the wall is closer by 6 feet. And if it was 10 feet back from the limit of work, moving it 6 feet out of place means that it's, you know, 4 feet back would put it at 10 feet. But Raul's better at that than me. So
I understand what you're saying. Okay. All right.
In other words, Mr. Chairman, when it's out of place, but there's still a 6-foot setback to the no disturb zone. And so if we make it go back to where it's supposed to be under the plan, it's not, it's only 4 feet from where it is now. And Raul, please correct me if I've got that math wrong. Am I off by a foot?
No, I think what is a little bit confusing is that the 10-foot was measured from the limit of work. The limit of work was a foot away from the buffer zone A. So if we are calling out the distance from the buffer zone A, there is another foot that gets incorporated.
Smoke and mirrors. All right, so only 4 feet, but it just only wasn't built where it was approved to be built. So here we are. All right, moving on, Russ.
I get nothing at this time, Mr. Chairman.
Steve?
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, I don't know how to comment again. We approved the plan, it wasn't followed. At this point, I'm assuming it wasn't malicious or, you know, just ignorance of the regulation. It's a mistake. And I'm trying to figure out how to deal with that. Thank you.
Well put. Courtney?
A question first for Raul. The wall as built, I'm talking now about the concrete block wall. How far is that from the edge of zone A?
6 feet.
It's 6 feet to zone A.
Yes.
And how far is the fieldstone wall from zone A?
It's right at zone A.
It's right on zone A. So to remove that rock wall, as you were proposing, and grade up the grade, you will be in the A zone. Am I correct? Or in the no disturbance zone?
I'm not sure what you mean, Courtney. I mean, does someone have to?
The wall is right on the edge. They're gonna take that wall down. Are they
Right.
gonna do it with sky hooks? No, they're gonna be down there with men moving around. They'll be in the middle. They'll be in the
Courtney,
zone
calm
A.
down.
Oh, I'm already opposed. I think you guys gotta live with what was approved and you gotta take it out.
So just for clarity, that we do definitely agree that that fieldstone wall will come out. It can
Oh, I
be graded,
understand.
and that area will be planted. And it's important to note that
Your presentation, Brian, talked about, you know, a buffer and that their things wouldn't be disturbed. But the point is, to remove that wall, it's gonna disturb things. And to build it, it was gonna disturb things. So, you know, I think the damage has already been done, and I think the correct solution, and from my mind, and I'm only one commissioner, is that I fully support staff's contention. It has to come out and redo it. I understand there's gonna be a lot of expense, and having been in the contracting business for 45 years, I know what happens with mistakes. And sometimes you sit there and try to do as many things as you can possibly do to figure out ways of not having to incur the gut expense of doing it right. But in the end, sometimes you end up spending a lot less money to suck it up and do it right.
So if I may,
So
Mr. Chairman,
you don't have my support on this amendment.
just very, very briefly, to be clear, a clarifying point is the fieldstone wall is agreed to come out, and I believe that Raul said that then the area will be planted with native plants. So the area will be restored. And the second point is that if Mr. Bird's contention is that removing and replacing the wall is going to adversely affect the area, I said that wrong. If he's saying that removing the fieldstone wall is going to adversely affect the no disturb zone, that is part of the project to remove the other wall too. So it's going to happen one way or the other, and we're going to restore
Yeah,
it.
it's going to involve a lot of care. It's going to be a surgical operation, but it has to be done. And it can be done.
All right. Mr. Lizardi.
So yeah, I would like to share one of the pictures again because I believe the fieldstone wall, which is not cemented in or mortared in, and the fill between that fieldstone and the block wall, the removal of that could be done without encroaching onto the buffer zone A. So sections can be removed as the contractor comes in, only using the space between the two walls. Again, this is a fieldstone wall. It's just rounded stones that are stacked on top of each other, and there's fill behind it. That could be done from in between the walls. And Paul can correct me if I'm wrong. The only work that is still needed to be done within buffer zone A is the invasive removal. There is still some English ivy that is still persistent on buffer zone A that the current permit requires the removal and any void areas to be restored or replaced with native plants. So there is still some work to take place in the buffer zone A, but the removal of this fieldstone and the fill in between the stone, I believe, can be done without the need of using or staging in buffer zone A. But Paul could probably correct me if he says that he needs to be accessing the buffer zone A.
Hi, that's correct. Paul Moskowski here. That is correct. We don't need to disturb the buffer zone A whatsoever to remove that stone wall and or the fill. And that can be restored.
All right. Jim, anything else? Okay. Raul, Mr. Wall, Mr. Oppenheim, anything else?
No, Mr. Chairman.
Nope.
Nope.
All right. Jen, is there anything in the public chat function, please?
Nothing in the public chat, Mr. Chairman.
All right. What are you thinking?
I will put a positive motion on the table.
Courtney, you close the hearing and take it
Just
under
closing the
advisement.
hearing.
Yeah, close the hearing and take it under advisement.
Patton second.
All right, we have a motion and a second to close the hearing. Last call, questions or comments? We're voting to close the hearing. Courtney?
Bird eye.
Matthews, aye. Russ?
Robin's aye.
Steve?
And
It is unanimous. With this quorum, we have closed this hearing. Thank you, everyone.
Nice.
Thank you.
Very much. Have a
Good night,
pleasant
everyone.
evening.
Thank you.
I don't understand it.
Bear with me. All right. Next up, continued hearings under an enforcement order. Jane Fur, 26, 22, and 0, Shoreview Avenue. Map and parcel ID is 39-02C 0000504, Falmouth, Mass. Unpermitted removal of salt marsh vegetation and unpermitted reconstruction of a deck within conservation jurisdiction. Jen.
Alyssa, is this one being continued? Ms. Fur?
Yes, the applicant's representative has requested a continuance until June 4th.
Bird, so move.
Driscoll second.
All right. We have a motion and a second to continue this to 6-4, you said, correct? All right. Questions or comments? We're voting on the continuance. Courtney.
Bird, aye.
Matthews, aye. Ron.
Driscoll, aye.
Ronnie.
Holman, aye.
Russ.
Robbins, aye.
Steve.
And
It is unanimous. We have continue this to June 4. Bear with me 1 second, please. Lost my ears. Church Street Trust, 158 Church Street, Falmouth, Mass. Unpermitted removal of vegetation within the buffer to a coastal bank. Jen?
Alyssa? She's doing the enforcements, Mr. Chairman.
I'm sorry. Alyssa?
Thank you. The representative for the Church Street Enforcements has requested a continuance until July 23rd.
Aye.
Bird, so move.
Driscoll second.
All right, we have a motion and a second to continue this till July 23rd. Ronnie, you're not on this quorum, so I won't be asking. Courtney?
Bird, aye.
Matthews, aye. Ron?
Driscoll, aye.
Russ?
Robbins, aye.
Steve?
Patton, aye.
It is unanimous. We have continued this to July 23rd. I should have put these together. I'm going to have to do this separate. John Cook, trustee, John C. Cook, 2009 trust, 170 Church Street, Falmouth, Mass. Unpermitted removal of vegetation within the buffer to a coastal bank. Alyssa. Did you guys hear me?
Sorry,
No?
that was on me.
Oh.
We also requested a continuance for this one until July 23rd.
Bird, so move.
Driscoll second.
Yeah, sorry, I wasn't on my game. I should have had these together. All right, we have a motion and a second to continue this to 7:23. We're voting on the continuance. Courtney.
Bird, aye.
Matthews, aye. Ron.
Driscoll, aye.
Russ.
Robbins, aye.
Steve.
Patton, aye.
It is unanimous. We've continued this one as well to 7:23. Next up, Margaret Foffenoff, 30 Woodneck Road, Falmouth, Mass. Unpermitted construction of a deck, patio, and a fence. Reconstruction of a driveway and associated clearing of vegetation and altering vegetation within a resource area buffer. Alyssa.
Jen?
Yeah, I'll take this one, Mr. Chairman. We're bouncing back and forth. The plantings did go in on this one. We just want to wait until the fall to make sure they survive. Fallon went out and did a compliance check. But again, we'd like to just give them the summer before we close out this enforcement. So we could move this to the fall. I would suggest, 1 second, Mr. Chairman, Labor Day is that week, September 10th.
The request, is the applicant requesting till September 10th?
This is an enforcement
Yeah. I'll move to continue this till September 10th.
Driscoll second.
All right, we have a motion and a second to continue this until September 10th. Questions or comments? We're voting on the continuance. Courtney.
Bird, aye.
Matthews, aye. Ron.
Driscoll, aye.
Ronnie. Ronnie, you with me?
Yeah, Bowman, aye. I didn't know I was in this one.
Yeah, it's just for a continuance, so you're good. Russ.
Robbins, aye.
Steve.
Aye.
It is unanimous. With this quorum, we have continued this to September 10th. This is a new enforcement order, right? Just to
No.
be clear.
No, it was the enforcement, it's the enforcement that's been on for the Woodneck property, the one with the patio and the little deck on the outbuilding, the fence to be removed.
Yeah. Okay, so
Yeah.
Ronnie, you weren't on this. That's fine though, because we're only voting on the continuance. I was only clarifying that so that when it comes back in September, you know who's on the quorum at that point. Sorry about that. All right, next up, vote orders of conditions. First up, Michael No, MCN Construction, 205 Lakeshore Drive, East Falmouth, Mass. And Ronnie, you weren't on any of these because these are closed hearings, so you won't get to vote on them. But if you don't mind, hang out. We do have something for you to vote on in a couple minutes. The quorum is all of us here except for Ronnie. So, Jen.
Yes, this was the plan. It was presented by Mike Burselli. The plan was done by Richard Hood. It's for retaining wall, removal of pavement, landscape wall. They were, I think, reconstructing the deck. They wanted to put a little bit of fill in the back, kind of flatten that area out, put a patio under the deck. There was a dock on site that wasn't permitted. We had closed the hearing. We have findings on the deck and the patio. Dock to be removed prior to issuing a building permit for the reconstruction of the deck, which I do believe they've already taken off the house along with the pavement on each side, and then a revised plan for the mitigation of the stairs and just to clarify the size of the deck. So,
All right, Alyssa.
Just one other note for the revised plan to show the edge of natural vegetation on the site, because they will need to mitigate landward of that.
Yep.
All right.
Make a motion to issue an order of conditions as discussed.
Driscoll second.
All right, we have a motion and a second to issue an order of conditions. Last call, questions or comments? We're voting to issue an order of conditions. Courtney.
Bird eye.
Matthews, aye. Ron.
Driscoll aye.
Russ.
Robbins aye.
Steve.
Patton aye.
It is unanimous. We have issued an order of conditions. Next up, Chris Lohman, Barletta Cape Properties, 19 North Shore Circle, Falmouth, Mass.
This was just for the reconstruction of the little tiny timber pier located on that large stone groin. Pretty straightforward.
Questions or comments? All right, what are you thinking?
I'll make a motion to issue an order of conditions as discussed.
Driscoll second.
All right, we have a motion and a second to issue an order of conditions. Questions or comments? We're voting to issue an order of conditions. Courtney.
Bird eye.
Matthews, aye. Ron.
Driscoll aye.
Russ.
Robbins aye.
Steve.
Patton aye.
It is unanimous. We have issued an order of conditions. Next up, Linda Quinnell, 44 Shaker Lane, Falmouth, Mass. Jen.
Yes, this is for the installation of a Title V septic system. We have on here. Did we receive a revised plan on this one, Alyssa?
We did, yes.
Okay, perfect. I think that then all of our outstanding issues were addressed in that. It's just the installation of the Title V septic system.
Yeah, and the Board of Health approved this nitro system, so that's good.
Yes, this is when Mr. Harrington we were kind of asking him what changed over on that coastal bank area. He was working with John Doyle on the installation. We wanted to see how the bank would change, but everything else was addressed.
Okay. All right, questions or comments? All right, what are you thinking?
Make a motion to issue an order of conditions as discussed.
Driscoll second.
All right, we have a motion and a second to issue an order of conditions. Last call, questions or comments? We're voting. Courtney,
Bird eye.
Matthews, aye. Ron,
Driscoll aye.
Russ,
Evans, aye.
Steve.
That aye.
It is unanimous. We have issued an order of conditions. Next up, Donald and Nancy Colleran, 11 Foster Road, East Falmouth, Mass. And I have the quorum excludes Russ.
Yep, this is to install the core fiber rolls at that severely eroding coastal bank, add compatible stand, and then there were a few minor changes on the property that Mike picked up and did a revised plan for us. And there was an increase in square footage as a result of that. So he is proposing some small mitigation, about 180 square feet.
Anything anybody want to see in there? Questions or comments?
No.
All right, what are you thinking?
I'll make a motion to issue an order of conditions as discussed.
Driscoll second.
We have a motion and a second to issue an order of conditions. Last call, questions or comments? We're voting. Courtney,
Bird eye.
Matthews, aye. Ron,
Driscoll aye.
Steve.
That aye.
It is unanimous. With this quorum, we have issued an order of conditions. Next up is to vote amended order of conditions. First up, Elizabeth Katz, 190 Associates Road, Realty Trust, 190 Associates Road, Falmouth, Mass.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, this is to amend an existing order of conditions to add a pool, decking, a hot tub, mitigation area. I think we need to adjust the mitigation area because of a kind of a stone wall on the property. But that's about it. It was presented by BSS Design and Chris Harici.
All right, Alyssa.
The other note that I have is some mitigation is currently proposed in Zone B. So the commission will need to determine if that is acceptable in this case. Thank you.
I think Tom said they can move that mitigation into the Zone A.
I believe he did.
It's a condition.
Right. All right, anything else? All right, what are you thinking?
I'll make a motion to close the hearing and take it under advisement.
Driscoll second.
I'm sorry, to issue an order of conditions as discussed.
Driscoll still seconded.
Nobody picked up on that one.
Yeah, we're all tired. All right, we have a motion and a second to issue an order of conditions. Last call, questions or comments? We're voting. Courtney.
Bird eye.
Matthews, aye. Ron.
Driscoll aye.
Russ.
Robbins, aye.
Steve.
That aye.
It is unanimous. With this quorum, we have issued an order of conditions. Next up, Jeffrey and Cynthia Andrews, 34 Wigwam Road, Falmouth, Mass. Jen.
This is an amendment to just move around some mitigation, restoration, plantings, as well as restore an area that was removed that wasn't part of the original plan.
All right, Alyssa.
Nothing to add. Thank you.
All right, questions or comments? Anything anybody want in there? All right, what are you thinking?
Well, I make a motion to issue an order of conditions as discussed.
Driscoll second.
All right, we have a motion and a second to issue an order of conditions. Last call. We're voting. Courtney,
Bird eye.
Matthews, aye. Ron,
Driscoll, aye.
Russ,
Robbins, aye.
Steve.
Patton, aye.
It is unanimous. We have issued an order of conditions. One piece of business, other business, vote signature. Vote to authorize conservation administrator to sign on behalf of the commission. I'll let Jen explain.
So during COVID, when we were all in lockdown, the board took a vote because you were unable to come into town hall to sign the multiple orders of conditions that you issued. This board took a vote, recorded it at the registry of deeds, that authorized me as your administrator to sign, basically sign on your behalf. What we do is put your name and then I sign my name next to it. That authorization has since expired, and if the board would like to continue to authorize me to sign on your behalf so you do not have to come into town hall and sign all of the orders of conditions, I'd be happy to continue that, but that is completely up to the board. This vote would be recorded in land court and would be a binding legal document.
How does that work where Betsy's not in here tonight? It's still majority, right?
Yeah, it's a majority. It's fine.
Okay. All right.
I'll make a motion to authorize the Conservation Commissioner to sign on our behalf on orders and conditions and to record it in the deed, record it in the Barnstable County Registry of Deeds.
Land court.
Land court.
Yeah, and it would be the conservation administrator, Courtney, not commissioner.
Yeah, Conservation Administrator.
It's all set.
All right. We have a motion and a second for what Jen said. Questions or comments? All right, we're voting to accept that the administrator would sign on our behalf. Courtney,
Bird eye.
Matthews, aye. Ron,
Driscoll, aye.
Ronnie,
Holman, aye.
Russ,
Robbins, aye.
Steve.
Patton, aye.
It is unanimous. We have authorized vote signatures. All right, last motion. Actually, before we go, just again, welcome, Ronnie. Thanks. That wasn't too bad. So hopefully we'll see you again. Who wants the last motion?
Are we online right now?
Yes.
Make a motion to adjourn.
Bird second. Bird eye.
Matthews, aye.
Driscoll, aye.
Robbins, aye.
Patton, aye.
You skipped Ronnie.
Holman, aye.
All right, we're adjourned. Thank you, everyone.